Brianna, thank you so much for joining us today and for joining us in a conversation about what does it look like to care for the mental health of the MKs and the TCKs on our campus. And so we really appreciate you lending your expertise. And so before we get into some of the common questions that we might experience as faculty advisors shepherding students, I would love to also give a chance for you to share some of your story. Yeah, would love to hear a little bit about you, who you are, and then as well as how you got into counseling.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so glad to be with you. I grew up as a missionary kid in Papua New Guinea. And when I was there, I kind of looked around, especially in high school, and thought, it'd be probably useful if there was more counseling available here. And so that kind of started my idea on going down that road. And I went to Taylor University, where there was a really great MuKappa program, and for a psychology major. And I did my graduate school training, my marriage and family therapy degree with some theological training mixed in at Fuller Seminary, and worked in a community mental health setting for a while, treating kids with trauma. And now I'm working online with TCKs.
That's wonderful. Um, and so, what are some of the things that you kind of bring into your counseling practice from your own MK experience?
I've lived a lot of the things that my clients go through, whether it be homeschooling in the remote place or even boarding, um, classroom school at an international school. Kind of done a lot of those things, changing countries, and so I have some of that common experience that I can
Mm,
share. And sometimes it's the teen and me that share that experience, but not the parent. So and it kind of helps me connect with both of them. On the parent
mm,
level, of course, I'm an adult and I am a parent. And then on the teens level, we both are the TCKs and the parents are trying to understand that.
yeah, yeah, that's really great. Um, yeah, so the context for our conversation today, one of the things that we've heard from many of the chapters, and from the faculty advisors as well is that there is a real emphasis on understanding our own mental health, on understanding our mental health journey and how to support MKs and TCKs in the specific things that they might be encountering during their collegiate journey. And so, I guess as a starting off point for us, what are some things that you might suggest that a faculty advisor would look out for to see if a student is doing well or might need more support?
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that your TCK student might have a lot going on the inside, and they might be hiding it really well. But if it looks like they're starting to crack from some mysteriously high challenge level in their life, it might be some of their TCK experience um, getting brought out, and that might just be living really, really far from home, or having a lot of weekends where they're on campus and feeling lonely. If you have a campus where a lot of kids get to go home, your TCKs maybe don't. So they might be coming off of a pretty lonely weekend on a Monday morning, or they might be coming from school that's structured totally differently, maybe was even conducted in a different language. So they might sound fluent in English, but this might be the first time they're actually going to school in English. It's a lot of hidden challenges like that that
Mm,
can add up.
yeah. And so, what would be things for you that would potentially trigger another conversation? What to when you see blank, that might be an opportunity to step in and check in more deeply with a student.
If you see grades drop off, especially if somebody's been doing well in your class and then suddenly they're not, or gradually they're doing worse as opposed to better with time.
Mm-hmm.
As you get used to things and figure out how college works, generally people tend to get better at it. It's not a great sign if the grades go down with time. So on a numbers level, that's one number to look for. But also haven't, if they've seemed pretty focused and now they seem really distracted. Um, or if you're hearing, depending on how small your campus is, if you're hearing rumors that they are kind of absent, or if you hear about anything that sounds risky or dangerous, of course, that's important to talk to them about right away.
Mm, yeah. And so when you think about even the course of a school year, what might be some things in the fall, the winter, the spring, within those seasons that could help you check in with the TCKs under your care?
Yeah, I'm thinking about kind of the calendar of the year. In the fall, TCKs are new, and a lot of them are pretty good at being new. So they might be kind of doing pretty great at adjusting. TCKs can tend to be adjusting superstars,
Mm,
and they might be, though, using a lot of adrenaline to
mm,
accomplish that. So they could start to get sick. They could start to get really, really anxious, even if they
mm,
seem to be hitting all the um, hitting all the marks for what they are supposed to be doing. They might be getting really anxious on the inside. And so if they seem kind of in a panic about something small, it might be that they're just about at their limit with what they can figure out
mm,
all at once. So that's the fall, and then coming into the winter, it's the second semester usually. It's dark, it's cold. They maybe just went home and are sad about what they're missing, or they maybe just didn't go home and are sad about that. Um, it's really common to break up with significant others in that time frame. The honeymoon of college is over, and all that put together, the coming down off the adrenaline of the first semester is a really recipe for depression.
mm,
So you might see your student missing a lot of class or turning stuff in quite late.
mm.
Those might be things you could see as a professor if a student is starting to get depressed, other than just how they might if they look at.
Yeah. And what about some things, maybe even for the spring and the summer, looking ahead to the second half of the school year?
Yeah, the spring can be a time that brings up a lot of sad memories. They might have had a lot of painful school year endings that they're remembering as that springtime comes around. So they might have a lot of emotions right under the surface. And this time, if it's their first year, maybe they don't have that big change, unless they connected with a bunch of seniors, which of course can happen. But they might not be sure where they're going to go to. It's not as easy for TCKs to just have mom show up in the van, throw everything in, and roll home. So they might be thinking, like, what's wrong with me that this is taking me longer?
Yeah.
So in the finals week, instead of studying, they might have to be packing, or they
Mm,
might have to be doing final arrangements for transportation or all kinds of stuff that local folks might not be dealing with. So those are some of the things that might be on their hearts. And I think it might be kind of hard to tell some of that stuff.
mm,
Those might um those might have to be excuse me, kind of direct questions.
mhm. Yeah, that's great. That's really helpful.
Yeah.
Um, so then when we think about what a faculty sponsor can do, what role can we play in the lives of the students? And what's the tipping point to say maybe we connect them with other resources either on campus or in our area?
Yeah. Well, as I've mentioned, some of the big things are logistics. Like my car just broke down. My so now my plan for getting home is gone, or it's April and I don't have a plan for where I'm going to live in the summer yet. A lot of that logistical strategizing and kind of resource identifying is awesome for sponsors to do. And the little things mean so much.
Mm,
Uh, Storing stuff over the summer, for example.
yeah.
My college had a great program for that, and it was a huge relief. I had to pack during finals week, but
Yeah.
it was taken care of. So logistics, just being there to listen. And
Mm,
then if you find you're listening and somebody has like miles and miles and miles more to say about that, like really a lot more than what feels like it would fit in a regular conversation,
mm,
then that's a good chance that they could use to talk to a professional. Not because there's some pathology, but there's just so much to process. that it's
Yeah.
bigger than fits in social size
Mhm.
packages. And they're
Yeah.
probably having that same situation with their friends too. If it's just too much to fit in the regular friend conversation, then
Yeah.
even if it's not awful, it's a good idea to do some counseling.
Mhm.
Um, on the other end of things, definitely if there's any sense you have that they're at risk, whether it's from dangerous behavior or substances or thinking about hurting themselves, first whiff of that, and immediately it's time to talk to a counselor because you're probably not hearing all of it. It's an iceberg situation, most likely. Um, and in between, anything that sounds like it's maybe it's more than you can really relate to,
Mm.
not just because you're not a TCK, but because it's uh, really seems complicated or very, very deep stuff that they're trying to
Mm.
process.
Yeah.
Um, and if they're not functioning, like if you can tell they're just not able to get to class, or they're not, they're withdrawing and they're not with their friends, or their their grades are way off of what they're capable of, those big signs that they're just not able to do day-to-day life would definitely be signs to help
Yeah.
them get to counseling.
Yeah. That's really helpful. And yeah, I like what you mentioned too about sitting and listening, that there are things that just by virtue of being in the body of Christ together, ways that we can really support one another
Absolutely.
um, and step in maybe a little bit more than we might realize, but then also knowing, okay, these are the spaces where this is outside of where I can really support this person in the best way possible for their
Mhm.
long-term health. And so that's where we really do want to make sure that we have a bank of resources or know what is available. Because often for a student in the middle of all of this, it might be another layer of overwhelming to start to think about how would I even find support?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's where the faculty advisors can really be a help, is to know what are those easy ways to get connected to more. And so
Mhm.
Brianna, where would you suggest that faculty sponsors start to build up a bank of people available for their students?
Well, I would start with seeing what the situation is like at the campus counseling center, because financially, logistically, that is a great place to start. And so if there's somebody in the campus counseling center that has some way that they can understand the TCK experience, that they know a bit about it, that they wouldn't have to have the client explain everything to them. That's what's hard and not so great. But if the campus counseling center can be used, like the wait list isn't miles long, all of those things, stuff can block it being used. But if it can be, that's a really great place to start. Um, and if not, and you're looking for a TCK therapist in your state, um, it can be kind of hard to find it Googling, because a lot of us who see TCKs see kids around the world, so we don't necessarily market really heavily for our very own specific state. Um,
Mhm.
so there's a few different projects in the short and long term works about making that easier. But if you want help identifying somebody that can be a point person for your kind of private practice therapists who see TCKs in your state, if you don't know that person already, you can reach out to me and I can help tell you somebody I know in your state or help you look.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you for making your networks available. And
Yeah.
so, just so people know, what states are you able to practice in?
I'm able to practice in Georgia and Washington State, and also with clients who start in Georgia or Washington State and then go to Florida, Arizona, California, if it's for a month only in the summer. There's a few different possibilities, but think about Georgia and Washington if you're in those states or if your student is going there in the summer. I would say short version.
Wonderful. Thank you. And so we'll go ahead and send everyone your information as well.
Thank you.
And they can check out intrepidcounseling.org
Correct.
as a starting point to be able to connect with you and learn a little bit more about what it looks like to support this aspects of students' health. So thank you
Yeah.
again for joining us for this time.
Yeah, absolutely. So glad to be here.